supposed to be red meat to the base, which sometimes he uses Truth Social for, or is this a huge mistake?
I think it's for everyone, and it's also part of the Trump personality, right? He's getting his message out. He's taking some shots at some people and making it clear, and he's been consistent on this, right? And what I would say about this is, this whole thing is despicable, and a lot of people have a lot to answer for, or should, or hopefully will. But the Trump administration is the one that arrested Jeffrey Epstein in 2019. He's the one releasing these documents now, or through the Congress. And in the intervening 4 years, Joe Biden was presiding over the Justice Department. And I don't think anyone's going to sit here and tell me that the Democrats who tried everything under the sun to take this man out in and out of office during campaigns, not in campaigns, and there's a silver bullet sitting in Joe Biden's DOJ to take this man out. I just don't buy it. That being said, right, the documents are going to come. A lot of people have to read them. A lot of people have, the Watergate prosecutor guy didn't mention, right, maybe there's no national security implications, but you can't just release documents from the Department of Justice without someone reading it first, right? So that in itself is going to take a lot of time. So I think it's proceeding as it should be.
Going over it. I hear you scoffing, so I'm going to go to you, Essie.
Well, first of all, what's happening with Trump, this is a little self-care. This is self-soothing, okay? I take a bubble bath. I do a little skincare. This is what he needs to make himself feel good right about now. But I'll never understand the political impulse to draw this out. Mm-hmm. You remember back before the August recess, Mike Johnson, I'm sure at the bequest of Donald Trump, was trying to prevent the vote to release this so that it would carry over the August recess. Now it's about to carry over the winter break. Blink and it will be midterms. And as just a political person, a political operative and strategist, I would never want this story dominating every single news day heading into midterms. But this is by choice. This is what I think Donald Trump thinks is best for him. If we draw this out, people will get bored of it. They'll get distracted by other things. I won't, at one point, I won't have to keep answering questions about it. I think that would be true if MAGA itself wasn't just as interested in getting to the bottom of this as Democrats are.
Yeah, I do want to quickly play, Bill, and have you respond something from Congresswoman Dean, who talked to my colleague Kate Baldwin this morning. Here's what she said.
It defies credulity for anybody to say we just found 1 million pages of documents. They have known all along where the documents are, and there have to be hundreds of people who worked on these files who would be able to provide the expertise to get them out, unless you tried to bury them somewhere, hide them in a ballroom or a basement. I don't know, but it makes absolutely no sense.
We did not miss the dig there that was made. But I do want to ask you about whether this discovery of 1 million more documents that were not previously disclosed to the public, or the DOJ says we didn't quite know existed there, how that affects its credibility to the American public, you think?
I think this all gets back to the kind of culture of conspiracy theory that has become so prevalent. And no one created that more than Donald Trump and the MAGA movement in the last 10 years. And it is coming back to bite them real hard. Because right now, I think a lot of folks, I agree with Essie, a lot of folks in the MAGA world, I give them credit actually, they're not believing their own leaders anymore. And so when you say, well, okay, it's DOJ, yeah, there's not a lot of faith in DOJ, but there is an intense interest to see what has been covered up for so long. So in a funny way, that obsession with conspiracy is now out of control for Donald Trump. I was wondering myself, why would he keep talking about it? Because he actually doesn't know what else to do at this point. It's a train out of control. And in the end, folks are waiting to see what's in those documents. And I actually think they believe those documents more than anything else they're hearing, because they don't have faith in either party. They don't have faith in Trump anymore on that. The MAGA base does not believe Trump on Epstein anymore. And that is fatal for the midterms. David,
how much do you think the fact that there were people who were flaming, blowing up these conspiracies, like the head of the FBI or Mr. Bongino, they were using these things to really ramp up the number of people who paid attention to them, and now they're in charge and looking at this, and everyone's trying to say, no, this didn't happen. No, Epstein actually did kill himself. How much is that affecting all of this?
Oh, tremendously. I mean, let's be clear. I don't know. We don't really know what's going to be in these millions of documents, but we do know that Donald Trump is on the record praising Jeffrey Epstein in my magazine, in New York Magazine, and in specifically praising him for his attraction to young women. We know that there is video footage of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein ogling women together. Like, I'm not sure what other bombshells are going to come out of this thing. Like, it's already out there in terms of Trump and Epstein.
This is the thing with the conspiracy theories, to Bill's point. He's absolutely right. It's a faucet. When you turn on the faucet,
Right.
you have to keep running the water. And you can't then tell your fans, who you've conditioned to want more and more, now it's time to turn off the faucet. Tucker Carlson's seeing this. You know, the MAGA media sphere is seeing this. And now Trump, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, they all turned the spigot on. And now they're trying to tell their fans, just turn it off. That's not how that works.
And it doesn't have to be original material to make an impact. Those photos are searing, right? I mean, these are folks who felt, rightfully, that something horrible had happened. That these women, these young women were mistreated, something horrible happened. And in fact, they were expecting a lot of the fault to lay with Democrats. Now they see their own guy shoulder to shoulder with Epstein over and over and over again. Actually, every single time they see it matters.
And we just need to be clear. I mean, we saw pictures of Trump. We saw his name in there, many more times than people originally thought publicly.
That's right.
And we saw that letter that Epstein wrote that had a bunch of salacious details that he put in it, making accusations against Trump. But none of that has been considered a criminal activity on the part of Donald Trump. Nor have you seen the same thing with Clinton, where you saw pictures of President Clinton, in the pool and that sort of thing. But I know you want to jump in here, so I'm going to let you go ahead and jump in. When you see all of these things taken all together, though, it doesn't look good, does it?
No, it looks terrible. Like I started with, it's despicable, and a lot of people should have a lot to answer for. But I just want to make one small point about this issue, and what the Congresswoman just said is a microcosm example of the struggle people have trying to attack the Trump administration. You can't, on one side of your mouth, tell me that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are running